Hey guys, eighth cut. What did I do? Well, I did touch up the exhaust seat a little bit because I wanted to try a 1.6 there. We got plenty of height. Notice how tiny my top cut is. And we actually made the exhaust, the intake valve seat a touch bigger, but you can't go too far. Seems that these do not have standard Ford guide spacing. They're about 65 thousandths tighter. So whereas an E7TE, I can run a 1.6 and a 194, these I can't. Now, the chamber is probably a little bit smaller. If I put a gasket on it, I bet I can deshroud that intake a little bit more. And that's probably what they were thinking. They wanted to get a little more of that chamber away from that intake. But I haven't gotten there yet. And I'm almost where I wanted it to be to begin with. So I may wind up keeping the chamber a little bit on the tighter side, just for compression's sake. The valves have been ordered. I ordered Ferreira 6,000s, 194, 1.6s, standard Ford length. They should be here soon. Not a cheap valve, but instead of buying them from some vendors, you can get them a few bucks cheaper. I'm really paranoid about getting a counterfeit valve at this point. This is going to be hit pretty hard. I need a good valve that I'm not going to worry about. The way this was set up with the 1.65 exhaust and the 1.875 intake, it only had about 10 thousandths clearance between those two valves. To me, that seems very tight, especially something that's going to be jiggling around at 8,000 RPM. So if I have to shrink the valve, the exhaust is getting shrunk down to 6. And I know what I can get out of a standard 289 exhaust. And this really isn't much better, but it's bigger. So I don't know. I'm thinking about it still. It's fine where it is. It tops out pretty good, even with a little bit smaller valve. I want to go through this quick because I've kind of had it already, and I gotta get going. Our liquid looks good, but I did make up a different valve. This is a Chevy 194 throttle body injection valve that I milled down. It's about 1.86 right now. It has the tiniest bit of evaporage on it. I didn't really notice that when I cut the back cut. It's just a 45 with a back cut. It's much harder to see with this because it's not all shiny, but we do have flow. We've got blue on both sides of the valve at this point, okay? Not bad. We can see we got a little bit of blue on that side of the guide. The bowl and so forth really hasn't changed. I did hit the bottom, the very bottom of the valve job with a 65. And you can see it just touches the inside a little bit. Okay, so I fixed that big lump in the intake port where it had, we were able to raise it quite a bit without pushing our luck on our fast side. Well, we're going to take a look if evening that out made any difference on our roof speeds or not. Okay, that looks quite good. I'm pretty happy with the bore. And right down its throat, it looks really good. You can still see, it's funny. I look through the camera and it still looks lumpy and bumpy, that roof. I mean, I have plenty of thickness on that roof. I could change that whole roof a little bit more, but I don't know if it's going to gain anything but some extra CCs. Okay, I remeasured that valve. It's actually 1.863. Get rid of this 7. That's not accurate. Okay, well, 7th cut, I was already pissed. 8th cut, I'm not in much better shape. How'd we do? Plus. Well, we got a nice increase in the ear. That's good to see. All right. We're a touch better at 300. That's good to see. We do have a couple losses. Not thrilled with that. But we top out a little bit better. Remember I said I could get this around 250? It's a little out of our range, but it's close. Now, the Ferreras we're going to get, they're going to be neck down. So that may be worth a few CFM over these. But we were using this Manly that's neck down for this test. So in reality, working on the valve job a little bit, I think it paid off. Take a look at our swirl. Our swirl, when we put the intake manifold on, was very low. So it's something I need to think about. We got plus, 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 all pluses except one minus. I like this swirl curve a little bit better, right? We're 2300, 1900. I think I'd rather have it a little bit higher and hope it doesn't completely die with the intake manifold on. By the way, I did take this and I put the ported intake manifold and the big Holly carb that he sent with it. So let's take a look at that. And we can take a look at the last time we flowed it with the intake on. Okay, I'm going to say all the time spent on that intake was definitely worth it. Now, unfortunately, I don't remember how much manifold work it had at this point. Let me see if I can remember that. Okay, I'm 90% sure that this was tested with the divider full. And I took those flows from there and I worked a little bit more and I cut out the plenum divider a little bit to get these. How'd we do? Well, plus, 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 plus. Remember, it's seeing more carb capacity, so it's going to help. But we got some nice gains. The only where that it really didn't make a huge difference, didn't top out much different. How'd we do as far as swirl? Well, it's still basically dead. But we got 616, which is better than 429 over here. So I'll take it as a win. Now, I'm going to say the intake manifold is ported, but the openings on the manifold are smaller than the openings on the heads. And I've looked around for some Ford intake manifold gaskets, and they're all small. I may have to buy some gaskets and get it just right. But there's probably only a couple CFM worth of change between that and that. So let's say if we're running 600, we got 201 CFM. Need you guys to calculate that up for me. I'm going to say we're still below where we've got to be. In any case, let's take a look at our exhaust. This is where our exhaust was with the 1.625. Okay, this is where we were. This is where we are. All minuses. How big are the minuses? They're tiny. Are they inconsequential? I hate to see minuses. I like to see all pluses. All right, we went for 208 to 207.8. Is practically nothing with a pipe. Now, it's true all I did is I took that valve job and I sunk it down just the tiniest amount, and it's still plenty high. I could work on the valve job a little bit more and gain a little bit more back, but I don't think I'm going to do that. What I may wind up doing is take a junk 1.6 and then radius the face edge of it and see what we get, and move on from there. Okay, now, it's always interesting when you compare air speeds, okay? This was a 1.85 inch valve, and this was a hair bigger at 1.863 valve. Now, as soon as I was thinking of going to 194s, I'm like, man, that short side's going to speed up. Put a little bit bigger valve in it. Sure enough, our short side sped up. We're relatively even across it, and it's controlled throughout the lift range, basically. So it's not terrible. I would like to see it lower. Guess what? We don't have the metal. We just don't have the metal to make it any thinner than it is. It's about 100 thousandths on the short side. I'm not making it any thinner than that. We're done. Okay, how'd we do on the roof? Well, we dropped a tiny bit of speed here. We gained a tiny bit of speed here. They're a touch closer, not bad. The center of the cylinder side is still where the air wants to flow. Doesn't make any sense to open up the other side, does it? Okay, how'd we do as far as our pinch? Minus plus plus, very even across it. So I'm pretty happy with that. Damn, got a bug hunting me. Okay, as far as our exhausts, really didn't change much because we didn't do that much except put a different size valve in. Now remember, the 1.625 that we were using had the slightest back cut on it. Okay, the new one that we're using does not have a back cut on it. Okay. All right, that does make a difference. So this is what we did. This is what we had. This is what we have. Minus, plus, plus. Look how close they are compared to these. Very similar, right? Plus, minus, minus. We only lost a hair and a hair. Not that big a deal, even though I'd like to see a little more lively in the floor. Tough to do with that shape exhaust. Here we got plus, plus, minus. It actually dropped a hair on this side. But if you go right to the very outside of the port after the bulge, we have a little airspeed. We had none here. So that's an interesting way to measure it. In any case, slow, painful process. Progress. Slow, painful progress. How much horsepower can we squeeze out of 201 CFM through the intake manifold, the carb, and the head? You guys let me know, and I'd like to have discussion on that in the comments section. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.